Did Red Bull let this situation drag on for way too long? And do you think that we've seen the last of Sergio Perez as a Formula One driver?
Josh, I'm just thinking about one of the last things you said before you got into Sergio's statement. Like, they seriously signed him to a contract extension on June the 4th? Like really after what we saw at the beginning of the season? I don't understand why Red Bull decided to do that, saying he's going to be here another 2 years, and then boom, Sergio Perez is gone at the end of the season when the rumors were heating up, heading into the summer break that he might get replaced. They probably should have done it then instead of let this drag out way too soon. But maybe there was like a legal situation there where it would be easier to let him just complete the season, then we can basically pay him to go away in 2025 and whatever, because that's usually how I've seen it done in other sports where a head coach gets fired and then he basically gets paid to go away for the next year. So I guess that's the situation with Sergio Perez. And looking at some of the good things that he's done, Josh, I'm really glad you brought up all of that stuff, because there's been so much bad happening with Sergio Perez this year that I actually forgotten about all of the good stuff that he did during his few years tenure with the organization. Winning the Monaco Grand Prix is obviously a major career highlight, probably one of the highlights of his racing career, because not every driver can go out and say that they won the Monaco Grand Prix, Formula One's premier event, and then all these other street circuits as well, and earning that nickname, the king of the streets. Yeah, so Sergio has definitely had some good memories at Red Bull, but this 2024 season, and especially the back half of last season as well, and not being able to keep up with Max, it just makes you wonder about Sergio Perez, because I like I said, I didn't remember all of that good stuff because it's just been such a horrible year for him in 2024. So I'm really not surprised to see this situation come to an abrupt end. I was thinking after Abu Dhabi, and especially considering what we saw all year long, there's no way Red Bull could bring him back. And I know team principal Christian Horner said that this was Checo's decision and that he decided to walk away. But you know what? I guarantee you it was not Checo's decision at all. That this was something that Red Bull was going to do, hell or high water. And we've officially come to this decision, and he's no longer going to be at this team. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment about who could potentially replace him as Max Verstappen's teammate in 2025. And in regards to Sergio Perez, this potentially being his last hurrah as a Formula One driver, I guess I'll say we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Considering the form that we've seen from Perez all year long, I'm not really sure how many teams would be willing to take him on once we get into the 2026 season. But the one team that I'm thinking about right now is probably his best chance to return would be the Cadillac F1 team, because it said that alongside an American driver, they want to have an experienced Formula One driver in their line. I think there's a lot of F1 veterans who will be on Cadillac's shortlist there, and one of them might be Sergio Perez if he wants to return to Formula One. And we know there's going to be a lot of youth and inexperience on the grid next year in F1. So comes with that, you have a lot of growing pains. So if one of those rookies who are on the grid next season ends up struggling and all of that, maybe Sergio Perez will be on their short list, to just come in and replace him. So I think there could be some potential opportunities for Sergio to return as a Formula One driver. But yeah, but after the form he had all year long, I think those options might be limited, but who knows? I've seen stranger things happen. What do you think, Matt?
Evening, everybody. A couple of things on this. Let me show you this picture. This was posted by Sergio Perez yesterday, about 24 hours ago from when we were recording, putting this show out. It's not a paid advertisement for Patron, but this was his picture that he posted. And I saw that and went, you're going to need a few of them, Checo, I feel like, over Christmas, because there's no point training or whatever for next season. Way too long. Absolutely right. This has been coming for a long time. If you wind back to the beginning of last season, sort of in the early races, pre the European season, got a couple of wins, was doing okay, but then tailed off. And that's just continued into this year, where it's just been, I mean, what are we going to do now in Hots and Knots every week when we get to a Grand Prix?
It's still Lance.
He's not going to be in the knot section, or are we going to have an honorary knot section for Checo Perez? I'm joking. I mean, the pit lane incident at Qatar a couple of weeks ago was just embarrassing. Ben's stat that he dug up a couple of weeks back, which is clipped up on the channel that you can see from another show, where it was, what was it, 3 points per race since May or April or something mad. There was a Autosport minutes before the news came out this evening, when it was finally officially out. there was a graphic that Autosport put up on Facebook that said Max Verstappen since Abu Dhabi 2023 had led 700 and whatever it was laps of Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda had led 5 and Sergio Perez had led 1. And you can absolutely bet your bottom dollar without even needing to look that up that was under a pit stop cycle where he was left out longer than everybody else. It's 4 years to the day that he was signed by Red Bull to replace Alex Albon. And 4 years exactly, he has mutually consented. He's not been fired. He's not been sacked. He's mutually consented. That's the new phrase that pays. He has been mutually consented out of his job. So I guess this has taken a long time to get all the legals involved. And I've got a feeling, and I might go and drive down by the factory tomorrow to see what the car park looks like, because I've got a feeling that their Red Bull team may have packed up for Christmas today. So that's why we have to wait kind of extra 24 hours from what we expected. We were going to have to, when we got this news coming through yesterday, it's come through on the Wednesday, which is great for us because it's only a couple of hours before the show goes out. But I've got a feeling they, and as someone, I think it was Chris Medlin mentioned, it's official, but nobody wants to put this out because it's not, everyone else thinks it's their own announcement to make. So far too long for this. Let's talk about what happens next, because that could be interesting. 45 points in 17 races plus 4 sprint post Imola. Thank you, Ben. There is the stat. I mean, that is just for the front running leading manufacturer in the championship. I guess we didn't win it this year, and that's maybe because that on screen is one of the reasons why.
Yeah, it's a huge gap, isn't it, in the standings where we've had multiple race winners from the multiple teams for the first time ever in Formula One. He was the only one from a race-winning team that didn't win. So, you know, you've got McLaren, you've got Ferrari, and you've got Mercedes all having double winners with their both drivers. And then you've got Red Bull, who won 9 races this year. Not one of them was Sergio Perez. So, yeah, it's not the greatest out there. And you said about what we're going to talk about in Hots or Nots. Look, I've got rid of 3 Formula One drivers this year. I got rid of Logan Sargent. I got rid who else? Danny Ricciardo, and I got rid of Sergio Perez. I've got one more to go. One more. That is Lance Stroll. Yeah. One more. Come on, Lawrence. Give me a good Christmas present.
Who Mike Crack was quoted this week saying he's just as good as Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I don't know.
What is that all about?
I don't know what Matt was smoking. I think he was taking his name a bit too literally to think that he was anywhere near as good as a world champion or let alone a race winner. And I think he's doubly saying that to say that Fernando Alonso could still do that championship run and race victory run. And I'll run and lock the door before Megan comes in with some Christmas wrapping paper because I've just slandered her favourite driver. But yeah, so there is still lots to talk about. And actually, before we bring on Mike Crack, more like on Crack, yes, you mentioned Ben got the joke. Before we move on to the rest of the script as well, I saw a fantastic stat that this year, you know how we were all saying about old Sargent, he's cost so much crash damage as well. He deserved to leave his seat. If you had to take a look at it, Sargent crashed 4 times this year and wrote off 2 chassis. Franco Colapinto crashed 5 times this season and wrote off 3 chassis. Alexander Albon crashed 7 times this year and wrote off 4 chassis. So how on earth have we been saying that Albon hasn't been causing more damage to the team? I don't get it. And it's something I was going to bring up as well, ready for when we do one of our round tables in the off season, because the sort of bias towards certain drivers was unbelievable. And I think it links back to Checo in one respect, that we have been sort of calling, certainly I think we were calling it too early last year, that he should be leaving the team because Max went on a dominant run, didn't he? And that was, and we heard mid-season that Christian said that the car for Perez was wrong, and it took them until this year to realise. And then when they traced it back, it was Barcelona last year that the problem started, but they didn't realise because Max was winning. So that's a testament to how good of a driver Max is. But Sergio, even in my opinion, better of a driver because he realised it, didn't he? He said, "Look, there's something wrong here," and they didn't believe him. So I think we said it on the show before about that. So at the end, yeah. So I don't know. it's sort of last year, I've sort of forgiven him a little bit. But this year, as you've both brilliantly said, there's no excuse when it's been so competitive.